Hey folks, and welcome to the Pipnotic Symposium for the 1st of April 2020. Today I'm going to go over a few questions. I've had a few sent in regarding the currency strength software based on some of the material that I've been producing. So I just wanted to go through that and answer these questions. And the first question was what the session lookback was in the software. So I'm just going to show that very quickly, and you can see it here. The software this is an updated version. This has not yet been released, so patience with this. I'm just making some tweaks to the algo and the user interface. But in the mode setting, there are three different settings here. You have the lookback setting, you have the session setting, and you have the period open. And so for the session setting, if you put that on that, the software will then go and look at this information, the session settings, okay? And so here it's looking for the open of the different sessions relative to your market watch here, okay? So you have to put in the opens of the sessions at what they would be on your current trading platform, okay? And so for me, the Asia opens at 2 o'clock in the morning and it closes at 11 o'clock, and that's not where I'm living physically. I physically live in Asia, but my platform is about GMT. I think it's GMT plus 2, and so GMT plus 2, I mean Asia opens at 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so Asia opened about 4 hours and 20 minutes ago, which looks pretty accurate. Okay, so you have to put this information in here. And when you do this, let's just enable this. This is just showing us a vertical line in the indicator 15 minutes after the open of the session. So if I set it to that, and we roll back like this, let's just fill out the whole window like so. Go like that. Okay, you can see that since the open of the session, let me zoom out a lot. There we are. Since the open of the session, the currencies have been doing this. We can see we had a really strong Canadian dollar. Let's zoom out even more just to squeeze as much data on as possible. Okay, so this is minute data. So you can see that the Canadian dollar was really strong, probably late US yesterday, and now it's starting to wean off, as you can see here. And you can see here, Asia today, I mean, not a lot is going on. We zoom in a little bit more, you can see things are pretty flat. We have a weakening British pound, which is good for some trades I have, some short-term trades, and we have the Australian dollar, the American dollar, the Kiwi, the Euro, and the Swiss franc that appear to be, which there clearly seems to be some demand for. Okay, so we have the pound and the Singapore dollar, which are weaning off here. Okay, and this is something that I'm seeing relative to the open of the session. So the look back is being calculated based on currency strength now relative to currency strength at the open of the session. And this is interesting because when New York opens, or London or Tokyo or whatever, then you can see what there is demand for your session. And so if you can see that, let's say London opens and the British pound starts to go up, so the red line starts to move up, well then you can see that there's demand for the British pound for the London session. Okay, or there's supply of the British pound in the London session. You can see this information very clearly. And this here, this is a vertical line which has been put 15 minutes after the open of the active session. And I wrote an article quite some time ago, back in 2015, about this, so the European session trading the London Open. And this article is very interesting, and it will tell you why that I've decided to put this vertical line on the currency strength software 15 minutes into the session. It talks about the daily routines of some of the traders and when they're sitting at their desks, and why you could see that doing anything based on currency strength before 15 minutes past the open of the session will likely result in kind of like some kind of a fake breakout, either higher or lower. And so read this article. It's very interesting, and it'll tell you why this 15-minute session line is available in the software. Okay, you can see the address just up here, or if you go to pipnotic.com, you just search for coffee, then you'll see it. It'll come up there, and you'll recognize this image here as the one relevant to the article. Good. So that's what it's doing. It's simply showing you what is being bought and what is being sold during the current session. Okay, so if I just go to, I'm just going to show you the rest of the settings because these are quite interesting. So if we just put all of these on, just put 3-time currency strength, and we'll just change the time frame so we can see. Good. So we have that. Let me remove this one, and we'll leave this one. So we've covered the currency strength open setting, and then we have this one here, which is the look back setting. And this is just the default behavior. And here, if you put on look back setting, it's going to look at the look back value that is here. Okay, so it's going to calculate currency strength based on currency strength now relative to currency strength 20 periods ago. So if you're on, unless the enable static period is set to true, it will use any time frame that the chart is currently attached to. If it's set to true, it's going to always use the time frame that you choose. No matter how I change this time frame here, you can see that this one doesn't change because it's only using 4-hour data. And this is important to me because sometimes you accidentally click different time frames, and so you'll be making trading decisions on the wrong information. So this is just more of a security feature than much else. But if you change that to false, then it's going to look at the currently active chart. Okay, so if I change this to 1 hour, we'll change to 1 hour. This is 1 hour currency strength information with a 20 period look back. Here we have half an hour, and here we have daily, and here we have weekly. Okay, and so this is just a really nice overview of what's going on. Okay, and so if you want to see more profound information, well, then you can go maybe 50 periods back, and this will change here, and you can see that, I mean, 50 periods ago, you could see that we had a very strong move higher in the American dollar, British pound. So if we have a look at that pair, you'll probably see some kind of a push higher. Okay, let's go to the 1 hour chart, 4 hour chart. Yeah, you can see it here. So this is the move that you saw here. So you could see like that really nice push high here. So the British pound was the strongest currency for that period, and the American dollar was the weakest, and you can see that pretty clearly here in this push away from these lows. Okay, so it's pretty nice piece of functionality there. So I'll remove that, and we'll cover the last one. And this is one of my personal favorites, and this is quite similar to the session open in that it's showing us currency strength now relative to not currency strength relative to the open session, the currently open session, but to periods. Okay, so now it's looking at this setting here where period open look back. So now we want to look at currency strength now relative to currency strength at the open of the week. Okay, so if we go in here, you can see this is what currency strength has been doing since the open of the week. We had the American dollar, which was bought, we had the Australian dollar, which was sold off, and so now everything is kind of moving back to the mean. We have the British pound that is starting to sell off, and we have the American dollar, which is starting to pick up. And you can change that to anyone here. You can say, okay, well, I want to see, for example, what's going on currency strength now relative to the open of the hour. And you can't see it now because we're on the 4 hour chart, so you're going to have to go to the smaller time frame, so the 1 minute time frame as an example. And here you can see this information readily available to you. Okay, so now it's showing you currency strength now relative to currency strength at the beginning of the hour, and you can see that the British pound is starting to move higher, the Singaporean dollar is starting to move higher, and the Australian dollar is starting to move lower together with the Kiwi. Okay, so this is just a really nice way to gauge the developments of these currencies relative to one another since the beginning of a session. And if you want to get really heavy duty, you can say, well, I want to see what's been going on since the open of the month. This is going to be some pretty nice long lines. So if we go here, you can see, actually it's the first today. Okay, so we have some pretty choppy information. So if we go to the monthly chart, or the weekly even, there's no data yet. Where do we have? Here you can see it's pretty choppy, isn't it? It's because, I mean, the month just started, we're on the 1st, and so the look back is really tiny. So that's not going to give us a lot of interesting information just yet, but we can certainly see, I mean, on the 1 minute chart, what's been going on since the open of the month, okay, which is today. So you can see if we zoom out a little, that we can see that the same thing about the Canadian dollar. It was really high, it was really in demand, and now it's starting to move back down. Now we have the British pound, which is pretty weak. Okay, and so you can just see these patterns evolving very nicely by manipulating the configuration. Okay, and so the next question is obviously, well, what's the best combination of settings? Well, I have this setting here that I like to use. Okay, and this setting here shows me the currency strength since the open of the session. This I want to know. And this is showing me currency strength for the past 24-hour periods and since the beginning of the week. Okay, so I'm seeing a pretty nice slice of information about what's going on with these currencies. Let me move this one over here so it's a little bit more readable. Okay, here we can see. So if we have a look at the British pound, American dollar, we just saw that pair. We're on it here. You can see that, the British pound is strong, the American dollar was weak, and you can see that it moved higher. Now it's kind of poked into this area of supply just here. We're getting pretty close to it, so we can expect price to maybe have a run for this area of supply and then begin to turn around. And the beauty of combining currency strength with supply and demand is that you can wait to position yourself long or short until you have overbought or oversold levels at supply and demand. Okay, so you can combine the supply and demand software very nicely with the currency strength software. Something else you can do is you can, for example, focus on this information. And then you can say, well, since the open of the week, we have the pound that's being bought off, which has been bought. We have the American dollar, which has been sold off. And so what I like to do is I sometimes like to combine these currencies, okay, to point out pairs, to make pairs. And if we look, let's look at the session information. You can see that the Kiwi and the Aussie dollar are moving higher. And we have the Singaporean dollar and the Canadian dollar, which are moving lower. So if we find the Aussie Canadian dollar, here it is. This should be moving higher. You can see it's moving higher quite nicely. Okay. So let's have a look. Let's go into the hourly chart. You can see we've had a really nice push higher. We're having a nice pullback, and this is just telling us the price for the current session will likely pull back into demand and then continue moving higher from there. Okay, so pretty interesting. If we have a look at the, I'm not sure if I have Kiwi Singapore dollar. Let's have a look. Maybe I do. Kiwi Singapore dollar. No, I don't think I have that symbol. I don't have that symbol here, so I can't trade that. But we do have Kiwi Canadian. Let's have a look at the Kiwi Canadian. The Kiwi Canadian. This is probably, yeah, look at this. Price reacted very nicely at this 1 hour area of demand. You can see the Canadian dollar is pretty weak. You could see it was very high historically, and now it's starting to move lower, as we saw in the longer term currency strength information. You can see the Kiwi is moving higher. Okay, and so this information, we were starting to see this information quite some time ago, and so you could position yourself, put in your limit order to buy at this area of demand based on the currency strength situation continuing in its current direction for the session. Okay, so price moved up. We had a really nice 3 or 4 to 1 on this particular trade. If you would have bought here, your stop below here and your target wherever, somewhere up here, let's say 3 to 1, that trade would have been quite interesting as well. Okay, good. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. Before I go anywhere, I want to also tell you that the currency strength it's a pretty remarkable tool, and we do have some interesting tools available to you. If we have a look at the histogram for a second, let me put this one here. Okay, let's have a look at this. We do have the histogram as well, and this tool is available to all of you. And the histogram is a phenomenal tool because it enables you to make really interesting decisions based on two currencies competing with one another. So if we go to the 4-hour chart here, note that we've reached a pretty high price level. So if you go up here, you can see that, let's have a look. Historically, we're reaching some pretty high levels. Let me get more data. Okay, so you can see that, historically, the mean for this currency strength histogram is significant, is roughly, let's just add a mean. Okay, so let's put the highs here. So here we have a high here. This is not the mean, this is a high. Let's put another one for the lows around here. Okay, so when price moves above here, well then you know there's a high likelihood that it's going to likely continue lower at supply. When price moves below this line here, well then there's a high likelihood that price is going to continue moving higher from demand. Okay, and this is very powerful information. So what I like to do is I'll normally go here and I'll flick on the scanner and I'll say, well, I want to know where we have a currency strength that is exceeding pretty high values. Okay, so let's just put this on 10 just for the sake of example, and we'll turn the scanner on and see what happens. Okay, nothing happens, so we don't have anything that's that far up. Let's try 8, see if anything is approaching 8. Nothing is at 8 either. What about 5? We have nothing there. Let's try 4, and then we'll work our way down from there to see if we have anything. Nothing. Let's try 2. Okay, so here we have something. We have the pound Kiwi dollar and the pound Japanese yen. Let's have a look at the pound Japanese yen. Here it is. You put it on there. Let me reset this here. Okay, so you're seeing the information here telling us that this was wait, what do I have here? This is okay, it's because we have some. Okay, let me put this on here. We had some. Okay, so the pound American dollar. So let's go to the pound American dollar. I had my settings wrong. Okay, so if we have a look now, just had to get things organized there. Here we have relatively high readings on the pound American dollar. So you can see that we had this low, and we had a pretty high reading for this histogram relative to the historical levels at an area of supply, which is just around here. Okay, we're not going to get fancy about it, but this is one we looked at just previously. And so we can expect price to maybe have a run up to these areas here and then continue moving lower. If we have a look at the buy zone or the sell zone, we had the sell zone just here. You can see this is kind of the wick that was pulled back. Price didn't really get up there, did it? Price only managed to come back to the wicks. So it had support, became resistance, which is just below this area of supply, and at the same time we have a pretty high reading in the histogram, so we can expect price to potentially do something like that. Okay, we also have the interest rate swaps. They are negative, and so there are a couple of reasons for us to begin to accumulate or entertain the idea to sell the British pound at this area. Okay, and this is a really nice feature that's built into the software, and I'm refining this as we speak so that you don't have to put specific values here. You only have to put deviations from some kind of an average, and I'm massaging that into the software, so a new update will be around the corner, and it's going to be a very nice piece of software that enable you to just set kind of like a deviation from the mean, and it's using some pretty nice mathematics, so it's a challenge for me as well, and I think the end product will be very, very nice. Good. I just want to show you as well something that I've been working on, which is based exclusively on currency strength, and that is this. So we have, let's go back a long time. We'll create a report. Oops, save detailed report. And so this here is the Algo Trader that's based on the same information. Okay, so we have a sample size. We have about 52 trades, so a little bit, quite a few trades, not so much, but a decent sample size. And this is an automated trader that is based on the histogram for all combinations of these currency pairs here, or rather all combinations of these currencies, so the 9 most traded currencies, so the 8 majors, including the Swiss, the Singaporean dollar, and it's looking for deviations from some kind of a mean. And I'm calculating a sample mean, and then I'm calculating like an unbiased variant of that, and I'm using that to identify buy and sell signals, and it's a very, very accurate entry signal, as you can see here. We're using stop losses. We have about 93% accuracy for short positions, and we have 100% on long positions so far. Okay, and I have stop losses in order, so this is not going to hemorrhage the account. But I mean, I'm not saying this is a product, because it will never become a product and it'll never be available, but it is validating the functionality that we have available to us here in the form of the histogram. Okay, and that's just around the corner, and I'll be sure to let everyone know when that's ready. But it's just a very nice feature, and it goes to show that, I mean, currency strength histogram it's a very powerful tool when combined with supply and demand. Good. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. I know you're all busy homeschooling and doing other things of that nature. But thanks for watching. If you have any questions, just add them below the video or send them in the public room in the Discord channel. Thanks for watching.